Oh, 10 seconds behind. Well, that's the beeper. That's time. Let's get rid of that. And good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Todd Raines here from Woodturning Tool Store here Friday afternoon at 2:30. So glad to be here again. Means the end of the week for one thing. Although weekdays don't mean much to me anymore. I seem to work every day of the week. So, but I'm glad to be here. And again, let me just let me see if I can remove. Never mind. Oh, I need to stop screen share. There we go. Let me change that background a little bit. It's a little confusing seeing two faces of myself there. So anyway, 2:30 Friday afternoon. So I am here live from my shop in Allen, Texas. So here to talk about all things wood turning, tools, material, processes, and that kind of stuff. So what does it actually say? Tools and equipment, processes, techniques, wood materials. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And so 2:30 it's a funny story. You can see it in the other live streams, but in the previous life, I've been known as 2:30 Todd. Friday afternoons at 2:30. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, James. So let me I just got to reduce this screen here. Get that one out of the way. And James said, yes, it's 2:30 Todd. Thank you, James. Good to see you here. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. And but yeah, so that's why we call myself 2:30 Todd at this time anyway. But it's a good time in the day. Hopefully most people who do have jobs, full-time jobs, are able to kind of, slack off a little bit Friday afternoons. Where I used to work, we used to finish at 2:30 on Fridays. So that's part of the reasoning for the name. The other thing is it's the beginning of the weekend, and so there's a lot of people that enjoy time in the shop. So hopefully we can talk about a few things, and you can experiment or talk about some of that in your shop over the weekend. So we've done several live streams over the last number of weeks. We've talked about bowl gouge flute shapes. We've talked about bowl gouges in use and sharpening. I went through a whole process where I do my sharpening. Last week we talked about spindle gouges. That was timely because I used a bunch of spindle gouges on my last demo Wednesday night, PRT. Did a little wine glass. It's off camera here. Hang on. So all kinds of spindle work on that little guy. So today we are talking about spindle gouges, and we'll look at last week we talked about spindle gouges. This week we're going to talk a little bit about scrapers. So we're kind of going through the tool set, bowl gouges, spindle gouges, scrapers. I think a few weeks before that we actually talked about the skew and did a bit of skew practice. So we'll get through all the tools here, I think, by the end of this week, end of the show. And then the next shows we'll try to move on to processes and materials and other things. We've got some suggestions for doing, talking about sanding and finishing and that kind of stuff. So if you do have more suggestions for show topics, drop them in the comments and leave a comment or send me an email. Either way has worked. So, and if you can at this point, go ahead and hit the like button on Facebook or the thumbs up in YouTube. Subscribe to both places. That'd be great. So we are streaming to both places. And the YouTube stream is ending up on my web page. So if you go to my website, you can find the live stream there under Explore Woodturning. So no excuse not to find this channel. So let's kind of dive in. Let me talk about a couple of things from last week. There was a couple of comments and stuff that I think we clarified. We were talking about spindle gouges, and we answered questions about, confusion between continental gouges, deep fluted spindle gouges, shallow fluted spindle gouges, and traditional versus fingernail grind. So I think we answered that and had a good discussion on that. So cleared some of that up for some folks. And we've talked about honing a little bit. I hone my bowl gouges more than my spindle gouges usually. I don't know why that is. Maybe I use my bowl gouge more, I think, probably. And then, so somebody talked about a fluteless bowl gouge, which, I didn't actually look up. I forgot to, but I pulled out my Squeaky gouge, which is almost like a fluteless gouge. It's more like a scraper. So I don't have that finished today. But we did have people on, and we've had people on this show from obviously across the U.S. and a lot of Texas folks here as well. But we had people from Canada, from Scotland, and from France. So it's good to have kind of an international sort of base. I think 2:30 works. I think in the UK that's 8:30, so they're having a nice evening watching me. So it's good to have them there. So hopefully some people spread the word and join in. So let's see. So yeah, scrapers. Why talk about scrapers? Well, to be honest, I think I probably have more scrapers than I have anything else in my drawers. I've got a bunch of bowl gouges, but I do have a good selection of scrapers here that I've amassed over the years. So, and a lot of them are used when you profile them to different shapes, different needs. So that's one of the things to. I'm just going to double check to make sure I'm coming up on Facebook. I should be up on Facebook. I don't see anybody chiming in yet from Facebook. The stream looks good on YouTube. So if anybody's on Facebook, post a comment just so I know that none of them getting there. So that'd be great. So let me put up this. What are we talking about today? Show that scrapers. So let's go and remove me from here for a second. We'll go to the overhead, and we'll look at all the scrapers I have on the workbench top or the tabletop. We just tighten it up a little bit. And I didn't turn this on yet. That's all right. We'll just move it over manually today. Maybe I'll start that up. So there's basically on this half of the table, well, except for this guy, should be over there, it's all sort of store-bought or scrapers that are profiled straight from the manufacturer. So let me do this for a second. I'm just going to fix my overhead camera a little bit so we can slide along and get that set up. So I should have had this done before, but no big deal. So yeah, if I look on here, I've got probably 7 scrapers that have the profile straight from the factory, and I've used those in that regard. Let's just get over this group here. We'll tighten that up. Then we'll go overhead. We'll turn that off. So this group here, And that's kind of how I laid them out on the table is basically the shapes that I've kept from the factory edge, kind of small to large. So we've got a very small 3/16, I want to say, round nose scraper. Very nice. I haven't changed that profile. I've made it a little bit pointier, but that's good for getting in tight places, maybe the bottom of a tenon or something. This is a set of small micro Sorby hollowing tools, great for ornaments. I think I have another one a bit bent differently, but I just couldn't find it in the drawers. So those are round stock. I can't read the writing, but they're Sorby tools. So great small ones for ornaments and things like that. This one's interesting. This is a 3/16, or sorry, a 1/4 inch thick Sorby tool. It's about maybe 3/4 inches wide, and it's got this bevel on it. And I'll switch to put this guy. We'll get sort of a close up on it. You can kind of see there's a double bevel there. There's a very flat bevel on top and a bevel underneath. This was what Sorby termed as a hardwood scraper, and I've had this in my drawer for probably 15 years. And it's probably the first negative rake scraper I saw on the market. That's really kind of what it is. It gives us negative rake here on the profile and an under bevel that's smaller. So they marketed that as a hardwood scraper. Basically, any sort of hardwood it would scrape easier. So that to me is one of the earlier negative rake scrapers I've seen. So, oh good, yeah. Thank you, Norm, for clearing that up. I'm glad I'm showing up on Facebook. So YouTube has a good interface for checking the live feed. I haven't found that with Facebook. I'm not as proficient with Facebook as I probably should be. So thanks for clarifying, and glad to have you here again. So let's see, where was I? That was the wrong thing to do. There we go. Just leave it back there. So that's a hardwood scraper. That's been with me a long time, and as you can tell, I haven't used it a whole lot. It's been stuck in the back of the drawer. I've sharpened it a few times, but one of the first entries was negative rake scraping when I found. This is a crown tool. This is one of the 6 tools that I bought as part of a set of crown tools. 1/2 inch round nose scraper. I've pretty much left that alone, although I've sharpened down the sides here quite a ways. Still about 1/2 inch all the way. But that allowed me to do some scraping down the side of the bowl or box or something like that. So those are handy to have. Lots of things you can do with those. Here's a true box scraper, what they call a box scraper. Brings the sidewall in, and this angle here is slightly less than 90, so that when you hit the square bottom of the box, you're not scraping both this side and this side at the same time. So you can scrape along the bottom and just angle it slightly and scrape around the sides. So handy tool. Sharpened that one a few times. Haven't used it a whole lot lately, but nice tool. I'll put this one over here for a second. We'll look at the big round nose scraper, bowl scraper. Nice and thick. It's not the heavy duty one, the heavy duty. Maybe it is. I'm not quite sure. Probably 3/8 thick, and an inch and a bit wide, 1.5 inches, it says. So this is left with the factory grind. I haven't changed the profile, although I've reground this a little bit, maybe brought it back a bit further than normal. But otherwise, it's unshaped. Or not unshaped, but shaped straight from the factory. So let me turn that off. Put myself on here. This one is a parting tool, simple parting tool, but it is it can be used as a scraper. These kind of fall into 2 categories of skew and scraper. So I do scrape a lot with these things. In fact, my piston box demo, I use a parting tool on the end and scrape the lid of the box with it as it's on a jam chuck. The reason I do that is this is such a small profile that you're not taking a very large cut at once, and so it's a gentler cut, right? So the bigger the surface area of cutting, the more aggressive it is. So that's that. So those are kind of factory ground tools that I've had. Left the profile the way they are from the factory. So move those out of the way. Bear with me a second. That. So like I said, I have a large assortment of scrapers, mostly because they can vary in profile and shape, and I think that's pretty consistent for a lot of people. Bowl gouges, you can get different sizes, but and flute shapes and stuff. We talked about that, but typically you'd have 2 or 3 bowl gouges. You may have 4 or 5 scrapers with different profiles. So these are all scrapers that I have custom profiled. So we'll talk about them one by one. I'll put this one over here maybe. So it almost looks like a skew in a way, or a laser skew, but it's or a bowl scraper, but it's got a double bevel. So this is a negative rake. Let's see if I can get a better shot over here. So it's an equal bevel on either side, and I would say that is probably 30 degree, 25, 30 degree included angle. So where that makes 70, 60 degrees top and bottom. I don't have my gauge here. I basically go where it looks right. I don't measure negative rake scrape angles that much, but I do sometimes. Having this even on both sides means I can use it this side and this side equally as well. Typically, when you sharpen, you're sharpening the bottom bevel. That means you're going to use it this side up. If you're going to use it the other side, you want to sharpen the other bevel. That leaves the burr there. So quickly, easy to do on the platform. Just swing it around at the right angle. There you go. So I'll leave that one too. This one is a square nose scraper that I've put a slight radius on it. This comes from having a class with Al Sturt. So Al Sturt uses this kind of scraper for shear scraping the outside of bowls, doing some flutes outside the bowls. So that's been with me for since 2008 or so, thereabouts. As a scraper I use quite a bit. So that one's I use. This one I use quite a bit. Here's a specialty scraper for doing dovetail mortises. So this was a square scraper. I bought this at a tool swap. And so you can grind this way. You kind of need a sort of a square edge grindstone, or you could use a hand grinder, like one of those 4.5 inch angle grinders to get the cut going. But what this allows is sitting on the tool rest with the tailstock in the way. It allows you to get up in there close to the tailstock revolving live center and get that mortise in the, so this is my fingers, the tool rest, and get into that mortise. And we can show a little bit of how that's set up. Handy tool, so that's a good one to have around. Let's see, these two tools are based on Cindy Drozda's box set of tools. So she does a little finial box, and there is about a 5 degree, tighten up here a little bit, about a 5 degree top bevel, and maybe a 60 degree bottom bevel, and then a same thing on this side, but only down here. I don't need to grind all the way up here, only here. And so that gives you a nice negative rake at a 90 degree corner in here for making tenon shoulders for inlaying rings of wood in the lid, or making the mortise for the lid on the box. So that not tenon, I think it's at tenon, but for the inside where the tenon of the lid would fit. So that works well. And then for hollowing the little box, there's one of these little round scrapers, I guess. I'm not sure, for hollowing scraper. Same idea. Fat bevel on the bottom, 60 degrees, 5 degree bevel on top. These are tricky to grind kind of need your stone on one particular side of the wheel so that you can get up in there and bring it all the way around the other side. You don't need to grind this edge here. I don't know why I did that. I think I was just playing around. But you really just need the head ground for the hollowing. So those are custom shapes. This next one is one that I manufactured here, and it's the Teardrop Cutter. So these are my little wrench. Little teardrop cutter. This is T1 high-speed steel. It's got a slot in it, so it's easier to take off the whatever you're holding it on. I have a half-round bar. Pointy end and fat end, 3/4 inch thick this way. This one is inch and 3/4. There's a smaller version that's 1.5 inches long. Same sort of shape, but just shorter. The longer one is really meant to, when you're hollowing with it, to be able to reach around the corner a bit longer. So these are single bevel, about 75 degrees is the bevel I put on these. You can see the bevel angle on the tip there. And these are very easy to sharpen. One of the newest ones that came out was a Dovetail Square, and it's sort of made for doing this kind of dovetail work. It's one of the designs I'm working through, and so this is a new one on my store. So also the square end would be very useful if you're doing box recesses and stuff. So let's I'm gonna go over to the grinder and just show you how I sharpen these. I've got the camera set up over there, so let's go do that. What's James say here? Let's see. One tool away from greatness. Yes, it's kind of the way it goes with scrapers and stuff, or tools, and especially scrapers. Like I said, it's so many different profiles that you need. So I'm stepping into view and swing the light around. So we're at the grinder here. This is my 1-horse bench grinder. This is where I grind these to order. I have, on the far side, you can't see, there's an 80 grit CBM square wheel. And on this side, I think it's 180 grit. So I'll grind the profile on the 80 grit and then refine the shape or put an edge on it with this one. Really easy to do. Platform set up to 70 degrees to the wheel interface. I've got it maybe a 1/16 inch away from the wheel. And I just normally I have my dust protection mask here with the grinder. I have my gloves because they do, when I'm grinding on the 80 grit wheel, they do get a little warm. So I do wear gloves to protect my fingers. I'm just holding up a piece. This is all I do, and this is all I do to grind them as well. Sharpen them. That's the large one done. Here's the little one. Really not taking off a lot of steel at all. That's that one done. You can see it's a, I don't know if it's going to focus. There's enough light here. I don't think that's focusing. There we go. That's focusing. But it gets a nice edge on it there. So. And the square one is very simple. Just kind of put the square edges into the wheel. This one is a little trickier. It's longer than the wheel is wide, so I'm going to move it back and forth. Last square edge. And then the angled edge will go off the side of the platform and around the side. And I've got enough room there to do a dovetail part. So here is what they look like in the raw. So turn this off. So there's kind of the raw form of the small teardrop. You can see there's rough edges or square edges. Those got to be ground on the wheel over there, and then shaped. So I get them water jetted out this way, and then grind them all by hand. Those two. Stuff. Come back around and overhead. There we go. So we got those three all honed up now. So those are good to go. I'll leave those down there. So the bar is half round. Many of you have seen this before, so I use it half round. That's why I leave these without a negative rake on them. I just leave them square with the one bevel, single bevel, because as I rotate this over, it's creating that negative rake and it's shear scraping. So we'll go over that in a little bit. Jeff Edwards joined. Hey, nice to see you, Jeff. Hot fingers in 3, 2, 1. No, it doesn't get that bad when you're just honing, but I do wear the gloves when I am grinding. They do get a little hot. With the CBN wheels, it's actually been I don't know what's the word, a boondoggle. It's not really a boondoggle, but it's just a great saver because the large aluminum wheels take a lot of the heat away. When I was grinding these on stone wheels, I could get maybe a third of the way around. I'd set that piece on the lathe bed. The cast iron heat sink would suck the heat away from the cutter. I'd grab another one, grind a third of it, put that on the bed, grab another one, grind a third of it, put that on the bed, go back to the first one, start grinding that one, and just keep swapping out when they got hot. But the CBN, I can do a whole single one without burning my fingers. So it's been a big help having the CBN wheels. So in the square edge ones, I really like. They're nice and wide, so they work well. Let's see. So we've got those scrapers. I'm going to move some of these out of the way. We've got a couple more to show that are from the store as well. These are Carter & Son tools. There's two profiles that they have in their arsenal. And these are large, 3/8 thick, inch wide, heavy steel with a large shank on it. This is a round nose scraper. I'm not really in love with this profile, but it swings back a little ways down to here with an edge. So you can get the side of a box and the bottom of the box with it, but not my best profile that I would use. So you'd have to regrind this a little bit. The square one is basically the same thing. They've ground the edge back for box scraping down the side, square edge on the top here, and barely a bevel. They got more. Well, this is kind of interesting. I hadn't really noticed this before. They got more of a bevel here than they do here. So I don't know why that is, but that is what it is. Very, very slight bevel. I think this end looks like 80, 85 degrees. Very close. This one on the side looks more closer to 60, 65 degrees. So those are there. And then they've got one in the Mahoney line that I'm really kind of intrigued by because it's something I've seen. I think Richard Raffin does it as well. And that's this, there's somebody else that does a spear point scraper. Maybe somebody in the audience will remember what professional turner also did a spear point or scraper. So this one's nice. It's ground back. That one looks to be close to 65, 70 degrees on the angle there, and it's ground back on both sides. Again, same sort of material as the other ones. Nice heavy shanked. So this one I think I would really like. It's complementary to the Al Sturt scraper that I use on the sides of bowls. If I'm going up the side of a bowl, shear scraping, I do that sort of action on a bowl. This would do the same sort of thing, but you can go both ways. Like if you got the other a recurve on the bowl, you can go this way and this way. So that's kind of what I like about the shear point. So that's a nice one. Oh, again, seems to always happen in our live streams. We get a amber alert. Not a funny thing at all having that go off, but hopefully everybody's okay. So those are a couple of a few of the Mahoney scraper, or sorry, the Carter and Son tools scrapers that I carry. So try those out. Ouch! A little shock there. Steve Thomas got my new tool today. Nice. Oh, excellent. I'm glad you got it, Steve. So that new tool I think Steve talked about is one of the Woodpecker parting tools. I don't have one out here in the shop yet, but we've got a shipment of Woodpeckers in, and so we're looking at those. So speaking of Woodpecker, this is their Carbide Tools, which are essentially scrapers. So these are tools that I wanted to try out as well. This is the medium size. It's I think 24 inches overall. The larger sizes are 28 inches overall. They have the Carbide Cutter, of course, rectangular cross section, but that rectangle is ground down at the back to give a 45 relief here, a flat bottom, 45 relief here, so you can do your 45-degree angle shear scraping. So I am excited to try some of these out. I haven't tried any yet. I'm not a Carbide tool user, but I know there's plenty of people that are, and they definitely have their place in the arsenal of wood-turning tools. So they've got the I should have brought it. They got the square, or sorry, the round, the square, and the diamond tip in those tools. So those are some other scrapers that we sometimes don't think of as scrapers, but they are. One of the I'm looking for places to put stuff now. Real estate. Bear with me. So we've got this platform on here I'm going to take off so that we can maybe get a piece of wood on and try a little bit of scraping. So maybe tailstock off a little bit. I got this other thing set up over here that I want to talk about as well. So, which is an interesting little device I've used with hollowing tools. So there's that. So let me show you this little attachment. And let me zoom in with this guy. This is a burnisher. So it's one of the, take it out. It's basically a tool rest, a flat platform, and two carbide stems in it. And this one, I got this from Don Dairy when I was doing hollowing. And basically, like I said, the hollowing tools have those small high-speed steel tips in them. So if we take a look at a hollowing tool, it will have a back. Just zooming in here, sorry, bear with me a second. Not too far. So we would take the hollowing tool that's in some sort of device, and typically the cutters are that long, and we would lay it flat on the tool. We'd have this bevel created back here, and we want to put a burr on the top here. This is very similar to putting a burr on a card scraper in woodworking. So you rub it around the posts, and you're raising a burr on that edge. So some people have a burnisher in their hand. In fact, I don't know if I've got one down here. If you're into woodworking, you have card scrapers that you need to put an edge on, and have a card scraper holder. And this is one of the Lee Valley burnishing tools for doing card scrapers. So down in this slot, the bottom there, is a steel rod just like this, and it puts a burr at 15 degrees on top of the card edge. So those are used for card scraping, for scraping woodworking projects. And this is the same idea of putting an edge on your tool. And so once you get that burr rolled, you'll be able to peel shavings off your thumbnail. So that puts a nice little burr. So that's, I found that in the drawer. I haven't used it for a couple of years. I forgot it was there actually. And so since we're talking about scrapers, I thought I'd bring it out and take a look at it. So interesting little tool. Let's leave that over there. So let's put up a little bit of wood. This is a remnant from Wednesday night's demo. So let's see. What did Norm say here? Norm says, I picked up the woodpecker detail tool at AAW last year. I find it a bit too aggressive. Yeah, it's the detail tool has a very sharp point. Woodpecker makes a rounded tip with the detail tool. So that is very aggressive. It's very pointy. There's a lot of support under the tip here. But well, let's just leave that out. We'll see what happens. I'll probably end up just confiscating this mid-size set for my own purposes. Move this camera around. There. So since we're doing scrapers, let's scrape this surface. My favorite scraper. Grab that. That. Just for the heck of it. So we'll start with a negative rake just to clean up what we got here. This piece of ash, spindle-oriented ash, was a waste block, or the end block of a wine goblet returned Wednesday night. Wine glass, I guess, not goblet. We have that discussion too. What's the difference between a goblet and a glass? Price, mostly. And size. I think Lee chimed in and said size. So it might be an issue as well. So this is a negative rake scraper. They're fairly easy to operate since the rake angle is pointing down. It means you don't need to raise the handle. Let me do this for a second. I'm going to grab the handle forward and bring it back around. to show a little bit of body position and handle position. So when the handle is here, we don't need to raise the handle with a negative rake. We can leave it level because we've already got the, if we're using a traditional unraked scraper, we would want to raise the handle higher than the bevel so that we don't get that catch that we all think about and talk about. So raise the handle. Just round that edge so it's not so sharp. That was the big bowl gouge. Let's see what this detail tool does. So I'm going to poke that right in there. Let's see, is that on camera? Yep, for the most part. Overhead, we're right there. So is overhead better? Maybe. Let's try that. We'll speed up a little bit. Some nice line definition there. I'm going to take a close look at how it did. There's a little bit of burring on the surface in terms of surface quality. Take a little 180 grit, note that back. It's not too bad. We just have to clean up the grooves with dust. So let's see what this does. Rolled over. I don't know if I can do that. We'll see. Really not doing a clean cut, but I have it rolled, and that's on the floor here. Zoom that a little bit. Focus on my finger, my hand. There we go. So focus. I think I gotta bring it over. Move it more. Spot focus there. There we go. Let's see. Let's see. Norm was saying, "Yikes! Yikes about what? The way I was presenting that point tool? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Norm, but yeah, a little bit. Like I said, I'm experimenting with this diamond point tool. I prefer pyramid 3-point tool for that, or a skew. Okay. Yeah, those will work too. In fact, it's a good point. The 3-point tool is kind of a scraper as well. I didn't bring that one out. No, that's not it. So a 3-point tool has 3 facets on it, and my facets are a bit stubby. I maybe prefer this a bit more pointy, but they will do the same thing. I'll go to overhead and go, and we want one of the facets up when we're doing this kind of pointed. You can see it made a wider point than this one. So if we zoom in, you can see this groove is take your comment down. Fits the point tool. These ones fit this detail tool. So there's no grabbiness here when I was doing the point tool or the diamond tool. I can feel it now. I can feel it kind of trying to lift my handle as I go deeper. But it works fairly well. You hear that noise, that vibrating sound, everything is the tool kind of grabbing a little bit and pulling it up and down, resistance against my muscles. So, but they look pretty good. I'd be happy with those kind of cuts with this point tool. Look nice and clean and crisp in there. So cool. Okay, well, let's put that one away for now. One of the other ones I wanted to show, make sure I show, is the little Teardrop Cutter, because it is by far my favorite, because of course I'm a little biased, I do make them. So we can use this tool to clean up that surface on this this guy. So let me bring that over. So he's going to go right on there. Let's see, that shot might be better. So this is part of the shearing action. If I have it flat, then it's just like a regular scraper. I roll it over, it's now a negative rake. So what you can do with a negative rake scraper or this scraper, which creates a nice design, and do stuff like that. So that is the Teardrop Cutter, and using it as a negative rake. So let me, what else do I want to show here? Can't show a whole lot with this one. I'm going to change to a face grain piece of wood, and we'll try that out. So I've got this piece of maple here that I had mounted on this one. Yeah, that's the Nova. This is a scrap piece of maple I had kicking around, and it's got a hole right through it, so it's really not useful for much of anything except practice. It's kind of a pretty piece of wood, though. Excuse me for a second. So what does everybody else grind in terms of special shapes on their scrapers? Anybody out there want to chime in with a special shape or a different shape they use? Hey Tony, good to see you again. Nice to have you here. Thanks for joining. So I'd be interested to know if there's any other sort of shapes. I know this one is one that I like a lot. It's a radius scraper, and that does shear scraping along here. So let me do overhead. That's going to show it a bit easier, a bit more in terms of angle. So I have it tipped up on its edge. So I've taken the scraper and I've relieved this edge a little bit, because that's the edge that I'm going to be riding this tool on. I barely use it, or rarely use it when it's flat on the rest. I typically have it tilted up. And this radius makes sure that I'm only cutting on a small section of the cutter at once. I don't want this flat like a skew. So, is there a skew on? Oh yeah, there's one. Skew is good, and it's okay on a convex surface, because I'm only going to contact in one place all the way around. But I get to a flat spot and I'll contact the whole blade, and that's a lot of scraping all at once with a slightly radiused edge, I'm only ever contacting on one spot at a time. So I have instead of the tool being square on, have it lifted, and then I have it cranked this way so I'm not engaging the bevel. So move my tool rest a little bit. I do want to raise this one up just a little bit. Hand under. You can scrape out those vibrations just by going lightly. I'm getting vibrations that I'm going too much or taking too much. As soon as I get those vibrations, I'll back off and take a lighter cut. Come around the corner and get nice, crispy little shavings. So that's a great shear scraper for the outside of bowls and stuff like that. I've got a little uneven surface there. Oops, grab the wrong tool. So my handle is way up. If I show this wide, go a little wider on that shot. Get this guy out of the way. I have my handle up. My tool is pointing down. I have it angled so the bevel will not engage, and I have it twisted up this way. You can scrape going back and forth. Since I have it angled up, I raise my tool rest a bit so my cut is on the center line. You get a nice clean cut all the way around the end. So that's one way I like using that tool. We can do a very similar thing with this tool. We just need to rotate the cutter so this long edge is out here. Oh, sorry, slipping in my hands here a little bit. So now we've got a long shear scraper cutter there. We've got go overhead there. And then zoom that in a little bit. So you see I've only got a portion of the cutter ever engaging the wood at once, no matter which attitude I have on the cutter. That's the benefit of a rounded radius edge. I look at the two cutters overhead. They both have a radius edge there. So we can do the same thing with this cutter. Drop the tool since my bar is thicker and I want to do more of a shear cut this way. I don't hold it this way. That'd be pretty aggressive. You can change the aggressiveness of it by changing that down. And you get those nice little turns as well. So the teardrop has its benefits of having those two different shapes, or three different shapes all around. We've got the long sweep on the side. We've got the rounded end that I can use at the bottom of cups and goblets and stuff. And then we got the point. The point is used mostly, we'll take the cutter out and flip it over upside down. So now the bevel is the other way. We'll point it off this way. And what do we have? We now have a hollowing tool. We'll flip it over on the flat. Flat gives you a bit of torque resistance, so we can use this scraper as a hollowing tool. So I will pull this back a little bit. I need to get my cutter room in there. Oops. So I'm cutting just below center. I'll raise the rest a little bit. Cutting right on center. A little bit more. Turn the power on. We're able to use that as a hollowing tool. Of course, I don't want to hollow. I've got a screw right there, so I'm just making some cuts, things like that. So that is the versatility of this tool. One of the other things I like doing with it is really high angle shear cutting to create some shapes. I will flip the tool back over. I'll just screenshot here. Flipping it back over. Back to shear scraping mode. And I'm going to use it kind of up like this to actually cut with it. And so my handle is really low. Actually go a little wider. My handle is low in my hip, and the bar is kind of angled, and I'm able on the round side to move it like that. So we can scoop out say we're at the edge of a foot of a tenon. We have some sort of radius bottom of a this was the what I'm trying to explain is if this was the foot, we have mortise in here, then we'd grab that way, we'd have this surface as the foot, and then we'd have a little cove in here to relief. So you can do some, you can kind of get up close and personal into those coves and just shear scrape them out ever so nicely. So in fact, why don't we show a little bit of that. I'm going to show this dovetail cutter. The scraper here. So we'll do a little mortise right in here for putting this in a chuck. And I need this tool back. I want support on the whole width of the bar. And if I go overhead, I don't want it supported back here. I want it supported on the bar, so I have to have my tool rest in a position where I can do that. So pretend that the tailstock was up here. Your live center is here. You can get in beside it with this sort of attitude of a tool and create yourself a mortise. There's a YouTube video by Mike Peace that he showed, I think a couple of years ago, how to make one of these, and that's really where I got the inspiration to make one. So now we got our mortise set for our chuck jaws to expand into. Let's put a foot. Let's use this. Nice foot on the bottom of our bowl where everything will sit on. And then we've got an area to lift. So if I finish off this bowl, I'll just use this tool, this bowl shape. Just hogging one away for a second here. Say I wanted an OG curve. We can do it all with scrapers. And now, let's get in close. Drop this down. We'll take our scraper now, do the very sort of low-handled, high-attitude sort of shearing cut, and we'll make those nice and clean, as you can see in the inset picture. Let me put it up. There's a lot of tear out in here and stuff. So take a look at that. See all this tear out that we got from doing what we just did. Let's see if we can take that out. That's the goal. So let me put overhead there. Widen that out a little bit. So again, wide stance here, or a low handle, high attitude, rolling on the half round part, and making sure that the bevel doesn't really engage too much. It's almost a bevel rubbing cut in some regards, but it takes practice to get this. So let's see. Hopefully, I do well. I should be. I've done this a few times. So it's almost a bevel rubbing cut. Go overhead again. That's not the one. Tailstock. Overhead up there. See how much of that tear out we're getting rid of. So we got just a little bit right there, but it's looking a lot better. If we look out here where I haven't cut, it's better. It's still not perfect, but I'm getting some vibration. So I think I'm going to change cutters. Get a sharp one on there. And try it again. .330. Okay, so our hour is almost up. Let's take a look. We've got a pretty clean cut up here. I've got to do some more work here, but you can see how shear scraping with a low handle, a high attitude cutter, and this curved part is perfect to fit into this. Let me take this up. It's perfect to fit into this little cove area. You can see it slides right down in there. So that's one way I like to use that tool. But that's kind of scraping at its best. We can do straight on scraping, different profiles using a dovetail. We can use a teardrop. We can use point tools or diamond point tools, custom curves on our scrapers, negative rake, dual angle, negative rake, same angle on both sides, negative rake with different angles on both sides. Make your own, 5 degrees on top, 65 on the 65 on the bottom. Nice right angle. So you can do all kinds of different things with scrapers. and different shapes and stuff, much more so than you can with bowl gouges and spindle gouges. So anyway, that's a lot of. Oh, I missed a comment here. Sorry, Steve. What did you say earlier? 3-point tools can be dragged, bucked, and to the side to chamfer for bead. Yeah, so true enough. So you can use a point tool here and here, and then skew them and twist them side to side to flatten the tops of the V cuts and to create a bead. So certainly can, absolutely. So, well, I think I've got everybody up here. So one last thing I will say, I'll put this up. I've got turning a piston box demo PRD August 31. This one I'm doing at noon. That's a Monday at noon. I'm hoping to catch more people that maybe don't want to stay up that late. Hoping to catch some UK folks with that time. So check the website for more details. That's coming up Monday, August 31. And if you can make it, that'd be great. I love this little demo. This piston box, I think, is for me, it's a lot of fun to do and stuff. So that's why I'm doing it again. So join me if you can. I would appreciate it. Otherwise, join me here again. Put myself in the big screen here. Next week, next Friday at 2:30. Next Friday is going to be, today is the, I don't even know what today is. What day is it? Somebody tell me. I've got the time here. It's 21st, so 28th. Thank you. So next Friday, 28th, 2:30, I'll be here. I don't know what the topic will be yet. I think maybe we'll get into some process stuff about, when to make mortars, when to make a tenon, how to make them fit well, other work holding methods perhaps. We can talk about, I know Rick's wanting to talk about sanding and different stuff there. So if you got any other ideas, throw them in the comments, and we'll address them over the next number of weeks. I'm here every Friday, 2:30. So thanks, Steve. 21. Yeah, today's 21st. Appreciate that. Sometimes, just like I said, 7 days a week here. It's really inconsequential whether it's a Saturday or Sunday to us anymore. We seem to be working all the time. So we do take time off, but sometimes it's a couple hours on a Tuesday afternoon. Sometimes it's a couple hours on a Sunday afternoon. Sometimes it's whatever day of the week. So I hope you all stay safe, stay healthy, and keep turning. For that, I'm going to say goodbye, and we'll see you next Friday at 2:30. Bye for now, folks. Y'all take care. Thanks, Joaquin. I'll see you later.